I want you to imagine this. A man stands over a corpse in the street. There's blood on the ground. Witnesses are screaming. And this man, this killer, isn't a criminal hiding in the shadows. He's one of the most famous painters in Rome. And in just a few years, he will create some of the most important artworks in human history, while running for his life. This is the true story of Caravaggio, a genius who painted saints like street people, who lived violently, killed a man, and may have predicted his own death on canvas. Caravaggio was born in 1571, during a time when death was common and sudden. Plague swept through Italy repeatedly. Violence was normal. People vanished overnight. Members of his family died early, including his father. This matters because Caravaggio didn't grow up fearing death. He grew up expecting it. When he moved to Rome as a young man, the city wasn't the marble postcard we imagine today. It was loud, dangerous, overcrowded, and divided by class. And Caravaggio didn't try to climb upward politely. He embedded himself in the lowest layers of the city. Sex workers, street fighters, thieves, beggars. These weren't just influences. They were his friends. Before Caravaggio, religious art followed rules. Saints were beautiful. Holiness was distant. Most religious art before showed calm, symbolic moments. Caravaggio shattered that illusion. Rather than idealizing figures, he used ordinary people, including laborers, beggars, and criminals, as models for saints and biblical figures, often showing imperfections like dirty feet or ragged clothes. Caravaggio essentially painted real people, not idealized saints. They look less like holy stories being illustrated and more like real moments you accidentally walked in on. When people stood in front of his work, they didn't feel comforted. They felt confronted. Church officials rejected several of his paintings, not because they were bad, but because they were too real. He demonstrated intense naturalism. His people, fruit and flowers, are very lifelike. One painting of the Virgin Mary was rumored to be modeled after a drowned woman pulled from a river. Dead, bloated, human. His paintings feel like someone who knows what desperation, rage, and guilt look like because he lived them. While his career exploded, Caravaggio's behavior didn't just grow erratic, it grew dangerous. Court records don't paint the picture of a misunderstood eccentric or a brooding poet lashing out in metaphor. They show a volatile man who could not regulate anger, whose temper flared publicly, repeatedly, and with consequences that would have ruined almost anyone else. This wasn't rumor. It was paperwork. Assault charges, weapon violations, threats, property destruction. Caravaggio moved through Rome like a live wire. He carried a sword illegally at all times, part bravado, part paranoia, part status symbol. In a city where honor culture mattered and insults could escalate fast, he didn't de-escalate. He leaned in. One night, he attacked a waiter over something absurdly small. The way artichokes were served, fried in oil or butter. A trivial choice turned into a violent confrontation. Another time, after a heated argument over a ball game, he beat a man with a stick in the street. These weren't moments of private despair. They were public eruptions. And still, people protected him. Why? Because genius buys forgiveness. Cardinals, noblemen, and powerful patrons shielded him. Fines were paid. Charges were softened. Consequences bent. His paintings were too valuable, too electrifying, too alive to lose. He painted saints like beggars and martyrs like men you might recognize from the tavern. He dragged the sacred into the real world, and the real world made excuses for him in return. But protection has limits. Each incident narrowed the margin. Each act of violence made his defenders work harder. Rome tolerated chaos when it came packaged as brilliance, but only for so long. Eventually, the anger that fueled his life caught up to him, and the forgiveness ran out. Genius may buy time. It doesn't buy immunity forever. And Caravaggio's life is the proof. In 1606, everything finally broke. Caravaggio didn't spiral quietly. He collided, head-on, with a man named Ranuccio Tomassoni. The reason is unclear. Was it gambling debt? A woman? Honor? Pride? All of those were common sparks in Rome's street culture. Any one of them could turn lethal when swords were involved. What does matter is how it ended. Steel flashed in the open air. Blood splashed on a stone pavement. Tomassoni fell, and he didn't get back up. This wasn't a tavern scuffle that went too far. It was a fatal duel, messy, public, irreversible. Some accounts suggest Tomassoni was struck in the thigh, severing a major artery. If true, it's almost worse. Not a clean kill, but a violent, panicked ending measured in minutes of bleeding out. Caravaggio didn't stay to argue intent. He ran. That alone tells you everything about how serious it was. Rome responded with absolute clarity. Not prison, not house arrest, not exile, death. He was sentenced in his absence to a beheading, a punishment reserved for the gravest crimes. Anyone could legally kill him. Anyone who delivered his head could claim a reward. His name became a walking death warrant. In one night, Caravaggio went from celebrated genius to hunted man. The city that once bent the rules for him didn't hesitate this time. Violence had finally crossed the line where talent no longer outweighed blood. From that moment on, every painting he made was painted on borrowed time. And Caravaggio is no longer just controversial. He's prey, a fugitive with a death sentence hanging over him, moving from city to city with a price on his head. He constantly relocates. He lands first in Naples, a rough, chaotic port city, perfect for disappearing. He starts painting while on the run. He paints like a man possessed. The works are darker now. He leans harder into brutality and mercy colliding in the same frame. Light doesn't just illuminate, it interrogates. Figures emerge from blackness like they're clawing their way out of void. But his patterns haven't changed. Fights, enemies, narrow escapes. He's still carrying that same volatility with him. Then he goes to Valletta in Malta, seeking legitimacy. He ingratiates himself with the powerful Knights of Malta. He paints. He impresses them. He is even knighted. For a moment, it looks like redemption. And then, Caravaggio gets into another violent confrontation with a Knight of the Order of St. John, named for Giovanni Radamonte. This one is serious enough that he is imprisoned in Fort St. Angelo, a heavily fortified stronghold, a serious military prison. But then, in true Caravaggio fashion, he escapes. No one is entirely sure how. Some believe outside help was involved. Others suspect bribery or influence. The knights strip him of his status and denounce him publicly. He was formally expelled and declared a foul and rotten member of the order. That phrase is recorded in the official documents. He flees again, this time to Sicily. By now, something has shifted. Contemporary accounts describe him as paranoid, restless, armed constantly, sleeping in his clothes, obsessed with watching doors and exits. Witnesses say he seemed mentally frayed, jumping at noises, suspicious of strangers, unwilling to settle. And yet, he was still producing masterpieces. And the art changes. The shadows grow heavier. The compositions feel stripped down. The violence is no longer theatrical. It's intimate. Heads roll, literally. He paints severed heads with unsettling familiarity. David holding Goliath's head. Judith gripping Holofernes mid-decapitation. Execution scenes frozen in that unbearable second before life leaves the body. It no longer feels like storytelling. It feels like confession. And then he creates something that stops historians cold. In one painting, the severed head of Goliath is his own face. A self-portrait, not as the hero, as the condemned. It's as if he's already imagining the sword falling. It's as if he's offering himself up in paint, rehearsing the execution Rome promised him. A visual plea, a psychological unraveling, maybe even an apology. From celebrated prodigy to hunted criminal to a man painting his own decapitated head. He's still brilliant, but the confidence is gone. Imagine the psychological weight of that. A man painting his own execution while hoping to avoid it. In 1610, after years of exile, bloodshed, and flight, Caravaggio hears something that changes everything. Whispers of forgiveness. Powerful allies in Rome, including cardinals who still admired his genius, have been working behind the scenes. A papal pardon from Pope Paul V may finally be within reach. For a man living with a death sentence, this isn't hope. It's oxygen. Caravaggio prepares to return to Rome. He doesn't travel empty-handed. He carries paintings, likely intended as gifts to powerful patrons who could secure his pardon. Among them, many scholars believe, was David with the head of Goliath, the work in which Goliath bears Caravaggio's own face. A painted confession, a visual offering, a severed head presented in exchange for mercy. He boards a boat heading north along the coast of Italy. He is 38 years old, but he never reaches Rome. In July 1610, he is arrested in the small Spanish-controlled port of Porto Ercole. The reason is unclear. Some reports say it was a case of mistaken identity. Others suggest lingering legal issues or suspicion because of his fugitive status. He is detained briefly. Meanwhile, the boat carrying his belongings, including his paintings, sails on without him. By the time he's released, his possessions are gone. So he does something desperate. In the brutal summer heat, he sets out on foot along the coastline, trying to catch up to the vessel. Under the Tuscan sun, armed, already weakened from years of stress and possible injury. This is the last confirmed movement of his life. Days later, he is dead. Official records state he died of fever, but fever in the 1600s could mean almost anything. Theories include murder, infection, poisoning, or total physical collapse. No confirmed grave, just a death notice. He disappears into the margins of record books. For centuries, even his burial site was uncertain. Modern forensic studies in Porto Ercole suggest remains that may be his, but certainty remains debated. It feels almost poetic. A man who built his career on violent light cutting through darkness, vanished into darkness himself. Shortly after his death, word of the papal pardon arrives. If he had survived just a little longer, he may have walked back into Rome forgiven. Instead, his life ends on a coastline, alone, possibly delirious, chasing a boat that carried his last offerings. Genius, violence, redemption within reach, and then, nothing.